Good morning, everybody. My computer is telling me it's 10 a.m. sharp in the Netherlands and 11 a.m. in Ethiopia time. A very warm welcome to all of you today, joining in and trickling in as we speak. My name is Sander de Raad. I will be the moderator and your host for today's water webinar. While people are still trickling in now, let's start off with some practicalities before we kick off officially. So for those of you that have just been joining, please note that this webinar will be recorded. And the webinar itself will be a combination of recorded videos with the presentations to ensure a smooth flow of the session. And afterwards, we'll also have some live discussions. As you probably have noticed, is that the microphones and your cameras of the participants have been switched off, also to ensure a smooth flow of this webinar, because we have a very tight schedule of 1 hour. But please do feel free. Please do feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box below and also in the comments section. And throughout the webinar, we will respond to your questions. We also invite the panelists and the speakers to also respond to these questions. We will address them at the end of this session, and subsequently also will perhaps follow up with an aftercare survey. So for the program for today, we have a tight program, as I said. We have several speakers. So we have Mr. Jelmer van Veen from the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. We have Thijs de Klein, a consultant for TRAIDE, that will present the investment opportunity report. Then we have Dr. Mehari Moges as a senior and technical advisor from the Ethiopian Ministry of Water and Energy. And last but not least, we have a representative from the private sector in Ethiopia, Mr. Stefan de Wildt, presenting the experiences of Acacia Water, a Dutch business in Ethiopia. Afterwards, when we continue with the program, we will actually move straight towards a discussion. So some of the questions that you will ask in the comment section and in the Q&A, we will address and we will discuss. And then afterwards, we will conclude today's webinar. It will take maximum 1 hour. And that's being said, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Jelmer van Veen from the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to officially open and kick off today's webinar.
Thanks a lot, Sander. It is really a big pleasure seeing so many of you here, a lot of familiar faces, also some new friends, and that is really what this webinar is all about. Trying to get everyone as excited as we are about the Dutch water sector in Ethiopia. We've received so far over 130 registrations for this webinar, of which more than 30 from the private sector itself. So that gives a good indication of the appetite that there is. And we are really going to try to make this worth your while. I laid my eyes on an old document yesterday, which was from 1926 and mentioned the first trade agreement between Ethiopia and the Netherlands. So in 4 years, we'll celebrate 100 years of trade relations with Ethiopia. And I hope that this webinar today can bring us one step further in bringing the Dutch water sector to Ethiopia. There are challenges, there are needs from Ethiopia, and most importantly, we will try to focus today on the opportunities that exist for Dutch investments in the water sector in Ethiopia. We as embassy believe wholeheartedly in the power of the private sector and of the advantages that can bring not only to trade relations, but also to a development that is mutually beneficial to both countries. So I'm hoping we can make this work together. We need you as participants for this, and we will do our best to make that a success. I'm wishing all of you a very productive morning today, and I give the floor back to Sander. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jelmer, for these nice words. It's exciting to hear that We're almost 100 years into these kind of collaborations. Yeah, let me just jump into the introduction as well from TRAIDE's perspective. As Jelme just already stressed, the relationship between Ethiopia and the Netherlands is extremely strong. And that also applies to the Dutch private sector. So many people don't really know this, but the Netherlands is actually a very important partner for the Ethiopian government. So the Netherlands is one of the largest export destinations of Ethiopian commodities, the 10th largest investor in Ethiopia, and even also the largest investor from the European Union. So when you also look today at the participants list and we looked at the people that registered, we saw over 25 Dutch companies being interested in today's webinars and perhaps also then interested in doing business within Ethiopia. What we just wanted to stress is that you are not alone. So Ethiopia is already hosting a lot of Dutch businesses. So we have over 85 Dutch companies in this country that are mostly active in agriculture, but also in other sectors. And they have significant impacts on the Ethiopian economy by creating a lot of jobs, but also contributing to the much needed foreign currency reserves of the Ethiopian government. And last but not least as well, they are engaging quite voluntarily as well in a lot of responsible business conduct activities with which they also contribute to Ethiopian society beyond just doing business. So as TRAIDE, this is also our mandate to try to increase more sustainable business between Ethiopia and the Netherlands. So we would like to see more investments into the country, more business with Ethiopia. And that's our reason of existence. So we are here there to help you to come to the country. And we're also here to support you if you are trying to do your business in this country. So how does that work? We have a different range of activities related to attracting businesses, but also supporting existing businesses. But for this specific case, for the water sector, the Netherlands Embassy has requested us to organize a session and to study the investment opportunities for water in Ethiopia. So for that, we have developed a quick scan and an investment opportunity report, which we can share at the end of today's session. And today we have our webinar where we want to present these opportunities to you, kickstart a discussion, and subsequently, if you are interested, then we can also follow up by providing matchmaking services, or if there is sufficient interest, then we might even be able to consider a trade mission. So without further ado, I think we addressed the part from our side about how TRAIDE can help you to get going in this country. We will now move on to Mr. Thijs de Klein. He's a consultant for TRAIDE who is now going to present the investment opportunities of the water sector in Ethiopia.
Hello everyone, my name is Thijs de Klein. I work as a consultant for the TRAIDE Foundation and I will present some business opportunities we identified in the Ethiopian water sector. In this presentation, I will first give a short introduction on Ethiopia and its water sector, followed by an overview of relevant challenges. Lastly, I will present business opportunities in the different subsectors of the water sector. So first, an overview of the Ethiopian water sector. Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing countries in the world in terms of both economy and population, with a current population of 150 million people and a GDP of 108 billion, which makes it the 8th biggest economy in Africa. However, the rapid economic development and population growth strain the already limited water resources, a situation which will become further aggravated by climate change impacts. To address these water-related challenges, the government of Ethiopia has embarked on a long-term strategy to improve the sector's overall performance. The Ethiopian government aspires to provide safe water to all Ethiopians, reduce the impact of wastewater on natural resources, and to increase the uptake of water-efficient irrigation techniques to increase food production. In this strategy, the government sees a large role for private sector solutions. The Dutch water sector has a long history of cooperation with Ethiopia and can provide technologies and services to address Ethiopia's water challenges. Ethiopia's climate and surface water resources are as diverse as its territory. Precipitation varies between 2,700 millimeters a year in the highland areas in the southwest and as low as only 100 millimeters a year in the Afar lowlands in the northeast. Some parts of the country have a bimodal rainy season, while other parts have only one rainy season per year, for example in Addis Ababa, for which the monthly precipitation values are shown in the graph. Many of Ethiopia's surface water resources are part of the Nile basin, such as Lake Tana. Groundwater availability is highly variable and aquifer systems are complex and often not mapped in detail. With regard to climate change, the main impact for Ethiopia will be an increase in the frequency, magnitude, and scale of droughts, raising the risk of famine and major economic losses, especially in eastern Ethiopia. Water use in Ethiopia is mainly dependent on green water, which comes from rainfall and soil moisture, of which the largest part is used for crop production. Blue water use from surface and groundwater is limited and also mostly used for irrigated agriculture. Domestic and industrial water use is limited in terms of relative volumes. I will now give an overview of challenges in the Ethiopian water sector. With regard to climate change impacts, the major challenges in Ethiopia are increased evaporation due to higher temperatures and longer drought periods. On the other hand, higher rainfall intensity will lead to increased flood risk in many parts of Ethiopia. Another main challenge in Ethiopia is catchment degradation, which is mostly related to erosion caused by deforestation and other unsustainable land management practices. This also leads to sedimentation and eutrophication of reservoirs. With regard to groundwater in Ethiopia, there's a major lack of data on groundwater availability and use. This also leads to unregulated groundwater development. For drinking water, there is low access to at least basic drinking water services, especially in rural areas. Another challenge is drinking water pollution, with especially high salinity and fluoride levels. In irrigation and agriculture, many farmers are using methods with a low water use efficiency. Other challenges are unregulated water use and flooding. Many of Ethiopia's industries discharge wastewater without proper treatment into the environment. This is also due to insufficient enforcement of pollution regulations. Besides drinking water provision, a major challenge in the Ethiopian wash sector is the insufficient level of municipal wastewater treatment facilities. Besides this, there is insufficient cost recovery of water supply, mostly due to non-revenue water. To address these challenges, there are several business opportunities we have identified, which I will present per subsector of the water sector. Assistance regarding measures to tackle catchment degradation can be provided in the form of hydrogeological assessments, consultancy on catchment management plans, and capacity building for management agencies. In the execution of management activities, there is a need for catchment monitoring tools and equipment, including remote sensing related services. Community-based watershed approaches can further be developed to counteract catchment degradation processes. For flood risk reduction, possible opportunities include technical advice, such as GIS mapping and hydrological modeling, linked to land use planning and water management. Besides flood mitigation activities, adaptation-related efforts such as flood forecasting and early warning mechanisms are also needed. Other opportunities exist in infrastructure development. In particular, nature-based solutions, such as the room for the river approach, provide promising approaches to flood risk management in the Ethiopian context. To improve groundwater management in Ethiopia, hydrogeological assessments and borehole mapping studies are needed, next to monitoring equipment and capacity building relating to groundwater management. Exploring 3R, recharge, retention and reuse solutions to enhance rainwater harvesting and subsoil infiltration as alternative water sources provide another opportunity. For the irrigation subsector, availability mapping of groundwater resources and advice on their use and management is necessary for sustainable resource development. In addition, there is a need for capacity building on sustainable water use. Further consultancy opportunities exist in monitoring agricultural water use in terms of tools and advice, both in-field and using remote sensing techniques. Moreover, irrigation equipment and spare parts are vital to develop and sustain the irrigation schemes. The fast-growing agricultural export businesses also present business opportunities for irrigation equipment and water monitoring tools. With regard to wastewater treatment, the ongoing development of industrial parks presents good opportunities for the construction of industrial wastewater treatment equipment and technologies. Promising opportunities also exist in providing industrial wastewater treatment equipment and technologies, including measuring and monitoring equipment, for high-end exporting industries. Another opportunity is to implement circular approaches where treated wastewater is reused for a variety of purposes. The absence or poor condition of municipal wastewater treatment facilities in many cities creates opportunities for installing in-situ solutions, such as compact containerized water treatment systems, but also solutions like reed bed systems. The ongoing efforts to increase drinking water availability present opportunities in urban, large-scale water service delivery settings, as well as for small-scale household drinking water solutions. In rural settings, smart, low-tech solutions for water abstraction and treatment are needed. In remote areas where fuel shortages pose problems for pumping systems, off-grid solutions from solar or wind are promising options. With regards to drinking water pollution in urban settings, opportunities exist for large-scale drinking water treatment facilities and technologies. In rural settings, household purification technologies are needed to provide safe drinking water. With that, we come to the end of this short overview of business opportunities in the Ethiopian water sector. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them during the Q&A session of this webinar, or reach out to the TRAIDE team.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your presentation, Thijs. I think it's very interesting to already see how certain of these challenges that were presented at the beginning of the webinar, that they are actually also presenting business opportunities for entrepreneurs. So I think that's a nice takeaway, at least for me personally. So I already see that there's a whole chat ongoing. Everybody's introducing themselves. So thank you so much for your participation again. If you have any questions, etc., please do raise them in the Q&A. I see it's coming already in, and then we'll treat them later as well, either directly via the chat or later on during the Q&A session. To already address some of these questions, everybody will receive this recording, including this investment opportunity report, and also a evaluation survey where you can also express your interest, with which we will follow up. So that being said, again, thank you, Thijs. We will now move onward to Dr. Michael. He is a senior technical advisor for the Ministry of Water and Energy of the government of Ethiopia.
Thank you very much. I am Michael from the Ministry of Water and Energy of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. I work as a senior advisor for the Ministry of Water and Energy. Apart from that, I am Associate Professor of Hydraulic Engineering at Bahar Dar University. So I will be presenting you some sort of investment opportunities in the water sector in Ethiopia, taking into considerations opportunities for the upcoming 10 years of the National Perspective Plan. My contents will be, talk very briefly on the Ethiopian water resources, followed by some opportunities within the 10-year perspective plan of the water sector, and finally some challenges. So if you are looking into the Ethiopian water resources, we have like 12 major river basins. 3 of them are dry river basins. However, 8 of them are the wet river basins. Out of these wet river basins, we have approximately 123 billion cubic meters of surface water resource and groundwater resource. And out of this 123 billion cubic meter of water resources, a rough estimation of 36 to 40 billion cubic meter goes to the groundwater resource. However, if you look into the rainfall distribution, considerable part of the country is rainfall scarce. If you look at the northeast, the eastern and the southeastern part of, which is the majority part of the country, is rainfall scarce, getting annual rainfall of less than 140 millimeters annually. the rest part of the country get huge rainfall of more than 2,000 millimeters per year. This indicates the fact that there is a lot of opportunity for water resource management. And in fact, if infrastructure improves, these challenges and this scarcity in terms of surface water resource and rainfall will be improved. If we look at some of the energy resources, majority of the Ethiopian energy resource falls into the hydropower sector. Exploitable reserve is approximately 45,000 megawatt, out of which we have only exploited quite less than 5%. And we have a lot of opportunity to use solar, wind, geothermal, wood, agricultural waste, and etc. In fact, this has been published slightly some time ago, like in 2016, and there are some updates in the last few years. To the 10-year national perspective plan, the core plans in the water supply and sanitation subsector, which runs from 2013 up to 2022, the Ethiopian calendar, the main focus is to increase the national water supply coverage from like 56% in 2020 to 100% in 2030. For this, we have some plan for the rural water supply and for the urban water supply sector. In the rural water supply sector, we want to increase, we want to supply water in 25 liters per capita per day for every citizen within 1 kilometer radius. And we want to increase the coverage from 55% and make it to 100%. And we want to make it like 50% piped, taking into consideration the fact that most of the rural community lives in a very scattered way that we couldn't afford to make it all piped. In the urban water supply, we want to supply, we have divided the towns into 5 different levels, and we want to supply water starting from 100 liters per capita per day up to 40 liters per capita per day for level 1 up to level 5. And we want to cover from the existing 60% of the coverage to make it to 100%, and we want to make all piped. And apart from the water supply, we have also an integrated plan for the sanitation sector as well. By the end of 2030, we want to implement basin integrated wastewater management in 95 towns. Some of the towns have been started already. And apart from this, we want to reduce non-functionality of rural water supply from 90% in 2020 to 7% in 2030. And we have also a plan to reduce water loss within the piped system from 39%, which exists at the moment in 2020, to 20% in 2030. That really requires a lot of commitment, human resource, budget, and other implications as well. And looking into the opportunities in the water supply sector, in urban context, because we have been planning a lot of systems, we have a large scale, we look into large scale water service delivery settings, as well as small scale household drinking water solutions expected from different partners. We also looked into investments really related to drilling of deep well. We have done some sort of inventory of some of the ongoing water supply system constructions, and most of the ongoing water supply system constructions lagged due to the fact that the existing drilling rigs and techniques as well lags behind most of the technology around the world. So there is, we presume there is a lot of investment opportunity related to drilling of deep well. And going to the rural settings, we looked into solutions, smart, low technology solutions, using decentralized and off-grid power solutions for water abstraction and treatment. We also have another project for climate. We call it climate resilient wash. We have a project which runs for around 109 waradas of the entire country. We have climate smart decentralized solutions for water supply and treatment for both productive and domestic purposes. The second sector is the second core plan, the water management sector. And the major plans are in integrated water resource management, integrated watershed development, watershed database, and we also have a plan to establish a comprehensive watershed database for information-based water resource management and development. To speak into some of the numbers, we want to increase surface water resource flow information from 78%, which exists at the moment, to 100%, and we want to have an increased groundwater resource information coverage from like 17.95% to 35%. You know, we say that, you know, we have like 123 billion cubic meter per second, taking into consideration the existing gauging stations distributed in the 12 river basins. And most of the gauging stations appear to be non-functional. If you look into the figure in the left, you know, what has been shown in the numbers which have been shown in the different basins indicate the number of gauges, and the red one indicates the functional gauges. So the gauge coverage is, you know, below the standard of the World Meteorological Organization. And out of this as well, there are a number of gauges which are non-functional. So we have a lot of assignments to do. In the water management subsector, the opportunities include, you know, we have surface and groundwater assessments, and mapping and modeling. We have also a lot of upcoming consultancy on catchment management plans and capacity building and management agencies. And we have also catchment monitoring tools and equipment, you know, procurement of a lot of equipment for catchment monitoring, including remote sensing related devices. And we have also other options for flood forecasting and early warning mechanisms, where a lot of parts of the country flood prone. So we need to work on a lot of issues related to forecasting and early warning mechanisms. And there are also other works related to infrastructure development that includes flood protection levees, damming, and other nature-based solutions. In fact, the irrigation subsector, it went out of the Ministry of Water and Energy at the moment. It is in a separate ministry. However, we have already developed the 10-year perspective plan before the division of the two ministries. So in the irrigation subsector, we have an increased, we have the core plans includes increase of study and design of medium-sized irrigation systems from 600,000 to 1.6 million hectare, which appears to be extremely inflated and ambitious. And we also want to construct medium-sized irrigation systems from 490,000 hectare to 990,000 hectare, which is like 500,000 hectare of construction of medium-sized irrigation systems. And we want to increase the use of improved irrigation technologies from 2% to 30%. That means at the moment, there is no use of irrigation technology in the country as well. So, and lastly, we have, you know, increased water use efficiency from 10 existing irrigation projects from 30% to 65%, and cultivate land use from 33% to 100%. The opportunities in the irrigation sector includes, you know, availability of, you know, at the moment we are using more of surface water for irrigation, but in the upcoming 10 years we want to upscale and we want to use more of groundwater resources for irrigation and support the surface water subsector. So we want to, you know, make sure that groundwater resource is available, and we want to map groundwater resources and advise on their use and management for the sustainable development of the country. We also want to have capacity building on sustainable water use, focusing on water efficiency in the agriculture subsector. We also have a lot of opportunity, a lot of consultancy opportunities in the monitoring agricultural water use in terms of tools and advice, both in-field and using remote sensing techniques, and moreover, irrigation equipments and procurement of irrigation equipments and spare parts are also vital. For this, government has a lot of support for upcoming investors. One of the important support is in the duty-free right. and an investor can import some vehicles, spare parts, etc., construction materials for establishment of new enterprises or expansion of expansion or upgrading of an existing enterprise. There is also import-free right, which has been, the law has been already developed by the Parliament on agriculture-related goods. So import of agriculture or water-related goods, including pumps, generators, etc., are also free of duty. In fact, we also need to go to the details, terms and conditions, depending on what exists. This is my presentation. Depending on the situation, we'll have some discussion, and I will be available for the question and answer session. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Michael. That's very, very interesting and a very extensive overview. I think very interesting to see as well that many of these items that you mentioned, that it presents a lot of opportunities. Looking at the participants list, I'm quite sure that there are a lot of people here that can either supply these kind of products, services, or perhaps might even be interested to jump on some of these investment opportunities. So thank you again, Dr. Michael. Good. With that being said, we've now addressed, of course, an overview of the water investment opportunities. Dr. Michael has just presented from the Ethiopian government's perspective. Now also we would like to give the floor to Mr. Stefan de Wildt. He is the country coordinator for Acacia Water, and they have set up an office quite recently as well in Ethiopia, but they've been doing business for quite some time already in the country. So without further ado, I'm presenting you Stefan de Wildt that will reflect on the private sector approach.
Good morning all. Thank you for this opportunity to share something about our experiences regarding investment opportunities in the Ethiopian water sector. My name is Stefan de Wildt and I work for Acacia Water. And I would like to tell you something about Acacia Water. Well, we are a water resources consultancy based in the Netherlands. Acacia Water was established in 2008, and we are specialized on shallow and deep groundwater issues and promote the sustainable use of water and groundwater management. In 2020, we opened a branch office here in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, and we work worldwide. We have operations from the Netherlands to the global south. We are a very active group of professionals, water professionals, and apply a pragmatic approach that follows research. And for us, it's important that impact of our projects or our involvement counts, and impact then in the sense of improving water availability, safety, and access to water for all users, whereby we are especially concerned about efficiency and sustainability of water resources development and exploitation. So what kind of services do we offer then? Well, in a general sense, we do all kind of water resources assessments, and most specifically groundwater suitability mapping for groundwater or borehole development. That's something that we have applied, especially in the recent years and currently in the larger East Africa region, directly for the Ministry of Water in Ethiopia, for example, but also for UNICEF on a larger, in multiple countries in Africa. And we apply thereby advanced remote sensing and GIS analysis using the latest satellite imagery. Another service that we provide is the development of all kind of landscape restoration plans and potential maps, as this is directly related to the recharge and replenishment of water resources. And this includes all kind of solutions around soil water conservation and nature-based solutions, which follows the 3R approach, stands for retention, recharge, and reuse of water. We are also very strong in all kind of hydroclimatic and groundwater monitoring, and preferably using the latest and telemetric technologies, so that you can follow real time as long as you have internet and a laptop from anywhere around the world, all kind of data around water. Think about groundwater levels, rainfall, water flow. We're also very strong in smart agriculture. So more crop drop, think about irrigation, water use efficiency, but also how can you improve or create freshwater buffers or lenses in hostile environments or saline environments, especially. And so in the Netherlands, coastal areas, but also highly saline areas, we have different solutions to improve the freshwater availability. And lastly, we have quite a strong IT department, so we can develop all kind of in-house IT-based solutions. Think about online data repositories, but also different IT tools for assessing water resources. And something about our partners and clients that we work with. Well, you can basically find them in 4 sectors, so the government, academic world, and the development sector, or the NGOs and civil-based organizations, and the private sector. For Ethiopia specifically, as I mentioned already, we work directly on the governmental side with the Ministry of Water and Energy of Ethiopia, but also at regional levels, we work together with institutions. We work a bit together with universities, local universities, and polytechnical or TVET colleges. We work with a large number of different NGOs in Ethiopia. Think about UNICEF, AMREF Health Africa, Wetlands International, and many more. And the private sector, we work amongst others. Heineken, they have a couple of breweries in Ethiopia, and we work with them. So at the moment, we work mostly together with the governmental sector and the NGO sector in Ethiopia. The private sector is somewhat limited, but we see a lot of opportunities there, especially in the agricultural and especially the horticulture sector in Ethiopia. Acacia Water is for over 10 years already active in Ethiopia in a variety of projects and regions, from west to east and from north to south. So basically, we work everywhere. We're not limited so much by anything. We had a local representative in 2018-2019, but he was dedicated for a large UNICEF project around groundwater mapping. But at that time, the opportunity was not right yet, or the moment was not right yet to establish full-time representation in Ethiopia. Mostly because our portfolio at that time was not that large yet, but that really changed in the years after. But then on top of that, we got COVID, of course, in 2020 that accelerated the opening of an office. Since we noticed that due to COVID, we could not travel as much as we wanted to Ethiopia, but our projects and the relationship with our clients and partners showed us that we really needed a more long-term representation in the country. So we were officially registered since August 2020. Now, we currently have 4 Ethiopian experts, 2 Dutch experts, and 6 support staff. Our business revenue, well, we're consultants, so we sell our expertise knowledge on water resource management. We mostly get our funding directly or indirectly from development cooperation, either bilateral or multilateral, and work together or via international NGOs and governments. Most of our contracts are in US dollars or euro, often through our head office in Netherlands, actually. But we, as a local office here in Ethiopia, we also have some contracts directly ourselves. And then our expertise and staff here locally is then being deployed and outsourced via subcontract. What are the challenges and opportunities we see? Well, the national safety and stability, both politically and economically, is gives still some high insecurity at times. Human capacity is also insecurity here. It's hard to find the right people and with the right skills. Also, their expectations are varying widely in salary, but also in the growth they can make, especially among young professionals. And that creates also issues with continuity of staff, especially. As soon as they get a better opportunity somewhere, people move away, they jump on the train, and it causes discontinuity within your operations. And amongst our partners, especially at a governmental level, we see a lack of long-term vision in terms of where the water management in Ethiopia should go to. And that also has to do with weak institutions here. At the same time, this offers opportunities. And on top of that, there's a huge population growth still ongoing. And also climate change is putting even more pressure on water resources. So the urgency is only growing for better water resource management. We see that there is need for evidence-based and strategic and smart planning of these water resources. And on top of that, we see that advanced monitoring of these water resources is really needed. And we do see that there's a turning point ongoing within the government and also the NGO world towards integrated water resource management and water source protection, and that better high quality studies are needed, which we think that Acacia Water can provide. And there's a growing private sector, especially in the large scale agriculture and production industry, which is hardly being tapped yet by organizations as us. So what are our ambitions for Ethiopia? Well, we hope that we, within the coming years, that we will really be locally established and being recognized as a renowned and to go to local partner when it comes to all kind of water resources management issues. We very much like to. I think we're not the ordinary consultant. We very much like to think along at a strategic high level with government institutions, with international NGOs, about the long-term approach and management of water resources in Ethiopia, and think about how can this be sustainably done. We also very much strive to strengthen local capacity building. We see that a lot of the studies are still being done by 50, 60-year-old experts, while the young generation doesn't get a chance, and we hope that we strive to give this younger generation a chance. So we have especially young Ethiopian experts in our company, and hope to provide them practical opportunities to build their capacity, to bridge that gap. And at the same time, I mean, in the long run, and hopefully within 5 years already, the organization, our office here in Ethiopia, can operate autonomously. So meaning that also the operational management is in the hands of Ethiopians themselves. So this is our ambition, and look forward to hearing your reflections and getting questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for this reflection. Also impressive to see your investments and also looking in the long run. And I think also, given also, again, the people that are here, that are showing their interest in Ethiopia, it's also nice to learn that you are very open to share experiences and perhaps even work together on certain items. So again, thank you everybody for joining, for introducing yourself in the chat, and also asking some questions in the Q&A box. So for the next session, for the coming 10 minutes, we will basically address some of your questions. We might not be able to address all of the questions, but don't worry, we will have a follow-up survey, and where we can also answer your questions, also perhaps ask you how we can help you with the next steps. So for the Q&A sessions, we have different speakers or panelists. So we have Mr. Arjen and Mrs. Kalkidan from Acacia Water. We have Wim Klaassen from the Netherlands Water Partnership and a strategic advisor for the Netherlands government on water. We, of course, have Jelme van Veen from the Netherlands Embassy. And perhaps I'm missing somebody, but that person will then afterwards probably speak. So so what I would like to see, let's kick off with a bit more of a technical question. Somebody has been asking, Mr. Daniel, that the groundwater use in Ethiopia is only 2%. And this person is also asking, why is this the case? Is it inaccurate data or what is happening? So perhaps maybe jumping onto that question, can I ask Arjen or Kalkidan to reflect on this?
I can start. And thanks for the question, Daniel. I think it's a very relevant question. I mean, groundwater issues are huge, and not just in Ethiopia, but in the whole region. And one of a lot of people depend, at least for drinking water, on groundwater. And what we do see is that there is a lack of the accurate data, both in terms of borehole data, but also in terms of groundwater availability. The geology is very complex. You do find a lot of hydrogeological maps, but you don't find a lot of groundwater feasibility maps. So that's something that at least we and also partners have been engaged in, and also the ministry. So the whole, what was also mentioned by the ministry, the collection of information data on groundwater is really crucial. So yeah, indeed, I don't think the figure is very accurate. We don't really know. We don't really know the volumes of the aquifers. There's a lot of water, but at the same time, we don't have accurate figures, and you do need that figures. And what we are trying to develop is a sort of fact-based decision making. If you talk about groundwater development for irrigation, you do need to know what the sustainable volumes are, or at least if it's not sustainable, also in case of unsustainable abstractions from fossil groundwater, you do need to know how long it will sustain. So yeah, data is crucial, and it's a complex market. It's very much with NGOs at the moment and with the ministry. The ministry is trying to take a leading role in groundwater development. And at the same time, you see a strong interest from donors, also from Dutch side, but also from World Bank. So there's a lot of initiatives, but someone should be in the driving seat, and it should be a sort of a long-term. And I'm happy to hear from the ministry there's a long-term engagement, a long-term planning for this. So opportunities, but not easy. And indeed, there's hardly any good quality data. Thanks.
Thank you, Arjen. Yeah, it's good to know that there's a lot of work to be done as well to to map these. And you're again stressing that this might be a challenge, but perhaps also thereby an opportunity. We had also a question from Titia, which I also wanted to ask to you, Arjen, where she specifically asks about the most relevant business opportunities, because of course a lot has been listed both by TRAIDE, by Dr. Michael, but also by Stefan. It's a bit difficult to do the cherry picking, of course. I'm guessing that a lot of the companies here have certain services or products that can feed into certain of these challenges. But if it would be up to you, what is the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to certain investment or business opportunities?
It's a tricky question in the sense that, I mean, there's a huge demand from Ethiopian side. What I find is that, and the huge demand is really in knowledge, in capacity building. Equipment is relatively, I mean, given also the tax rules and duty free, it's relatively easy, well, relatively easy to import equipment, but it's not so easy to import knowledge and capacity. So the low-hanging fruit could be in equipment. But at the same time, who is your client? Contracts are really complex, but you also need some sort of, I mean, if you export equipment or import into Ethiopia, you can get support from the Dutch government for the risk reductions. If you talk about consultancies, that there is a high need for consultancies in terms of what I just mentioned. then it's more tricky, especially when you have local clients. We just had as Stefan mentioned, we had a contract with the ministry, directly with the ministry, a dollar contract. We just took the risk. It was for us a really big activity. We took the risk. We got paid after 6 months. So everybody thinks we are crazy, but I mean, we as a small company, we did take the risk. So I think we have to show also trust in the Ethiopian government and in the way you can operate with the Ethiopian government. There's really, you need to build trust. Sorry, maybe I'm not giving the right answers. There's not in the sense as the low-hanging fruit. I mean, the challenges are actually quite very much related to a sort of a long-term engagement, a long-term building trust with local partners, and being a trustworthy partner also from yourself, and showcasing that you can have an added value and that you're trying to build. Especially this capacity building is really something that's really been appreciated as part of projects, but it also needs to be hands-on. It needs to be very concrete outputs, but at the same time, this sort of short-term concrete outputs, but also this sort of long-term engagement and trust. Monitoring is the big one. The real need for monitoring but yeah, you could say it's the low-hanging fruit in terms of demand, but it's not an easy one, because you have so many partners and so many organizations in Ethiopia that work in groundwater, in water resources, and the government is trying to oversee this. But in practice, on the ground, there's so many organizations and especially NGOs that work in this field. So I mean, there's a lot of activities, but at the same time, who to contact and who to work with, because I mean, you're not looking for the small projects, you're looking for the bigger initiatives.
Very nice. Thank you, Ian. So in that sense, I think it's also jumping onto that. You are indeed saying, look, you need to build trust, you need to build confidence. There are definitely opportunities, but you need to have your dedication. And it's impressive to see how Acacia Water just jumped onto that and said, look, we know that there might be risks, but we are dedicated to the country. And at the end, you managed to pull off some of these for even contracts, dollar contracts. Using that as a bridge as well, I do see that, I think looping this question and then referring it back to Mr. Wim here. Mr. Wim has you have a lot of experience as well with, investments and doing business in Ethiopia. And particularly, there are some challenges, which also has been raised in the Q&A when it comes to, for instance, tenders, contracts. How do you go about this? And also, how do you actually make sure that you get paid in Forex? Arjen just reflected on this, that there are ways to do this as well. I think also, can you perhaps reflect on this item a little bit more, Mr. Wim?
Thank you, Sander. Yes, investing in Ethiopia in the water sector doesn't go by itself. Obviously, it's an important sector, also very well articulated by, say, the policies of the Ethiopian government, which is a very important say, pillar for investments, very important in terms of sustainability and longer-term efficiency. Important to mention, and in the context that I have in the Dutch water sector, that still, and despite not all of the major private sector companies do have very good experiences. They found it pretty hard actually to approach Ethiopian water sector. I just would like to quote a couple of constraints that were actually told, which is a real life experience of these companies. Constraints from the Netherlands private sector for investments in Ethiopia. In some cases where tenders were actually, the bids were won and the tenders were actually obtained, and a relationship even contractually was established with the local government or with national government, it appeared that the national currency and hard currency component could not actually be, commitment could actually not be met by the governments. So that's been very much a shaking and killer assumption for the private sector, you know, that should be available. And various of the private sector companies mentioned that it was not. So that's an important matter to look into in any of the private sector enterprising actions in Ethiopia. Another point that was mentioned is that the local partner for tendering, which is a requirement, of course, in Ethiopia, and rightfully so, has not performed very well in a number of cases. So even that is both, it's a responsibility for the bidding agency from the Netherlands, but also, of course, from the tender evaluation to look into that. So that also caused a number of failures in the tender process from the Netherlands. The tender procedure and tender evaluations were mentioned as areas that were not fully understood from all sides. And also the client, say that the one who extends an invitation to tender, was administratively not always up to the right, say, capacity levels. And there, I suppose, Arjen's point, and I suppose we all underwrite that, you know, the capacity issue is there, because not necessarily that we have to think about other approaches than just the lack of capacity.
Yeah.
And another key one mentioned was that, you know, there is a need to look into a wider landscape of opportunities. Wouldn't it be possible to team up with other important private sector and powerful private sector entities, for instance, from China? We all know that the market is actually at our feet and at our hands. We also know that some are more powerful than others. So it's a challenge, of course, to look into options to collaborate. Is collaboration possible? Could a government possibly steer in that process and develop policy also to make sure that international private sector would actually mingle and team up together?
Yeah, thank
that
you.
That is
a
couple of little issues.
Thank you for your
question.
reflections. I'm sorry for cutting you short.
Sure,
I
sure.
never like doing that. I'm just looking at the time as well for the 3
Sure.
minutes. No, I think that's a very constructive item, because you are saying, look, there are challenges definitely, and you need to do your research well. There are also options and partnerships and perhaps even financial instruments also from the Netherlands that might be able to help out there. If anybody here as well, if you have more questions to Wim about this specifically, please follow up as well, and then we can go into more depths upon this, because we also have a follow-up on this. Maybe my last question, I would like to ask Jelme. No, okay, let's reshift this a bit given the time. In terms of, you know, the follow-up steps, thank you, speakers as well, for reflecting upon some of these questions that have been asked. Of course, we've had over 12 questions in the Q&A and overall also a lot of questions in the chat. We wanted to keep this within an hour because everybody needs to go to next meetings, etc. But this is not the last session. So what you can now expect from us is that after this webinar, we will send everybody an email where we share the recording of this webinar, and we will also share the investment opportunity report. And we will also share you will find a link where you can ask your question as well, and also express your interest in doing business potential. If you want to, you know, partner up, get connected, anything that is related to help you to get going and go towards the next steps, please fill in your request and we will personally follow up. With that being said, if we have significant interest, if you want to do business in Ethiopia, we can help you with matchmaking. We can help you get you in touch with the right contacts. And if there is sufficient interest, we might even consider a broader trade mission. With that being said, I would like to wrap up today's webinar, and I would like to ask Mr. Jelme van Veen from the Netherlands Embassy again to perhaps do this wrap up on behalf of us, and perhaps also reflect maybe on some of these open items when it comes to doing business in Ethiopia and how to go about it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sander, and thank you to the whole trade team, also all the people that were working behind the screens. This was really a great facilitation. Yeah, we have witnessed that there are quite some challenges. The forex issue, for example, was not even discussed thoroughly, but that is definitely hampering for the sector. But we think that this is very important. This is not only a business opportunity, but this is a development opportunity for Ethiopia, and that is why there are a range of support options ready to help your investment. What we've seen of over the 85 Dutch investments in Ethiopia that are successful, they are there for the long term. No one has succeeded in coming here and cashing quickly and being out in 1 or 2 years. So business opportunity in Ethiopia takes a long breath, but know that there are ample opportunities for support, and the trade team and also the embassy, myself included, is at your disposal for further information on this. Do please reach out. And thanks for your active participation in this webinar. I wish you a great rest of the day.